Hello and welcome back to the workshop and welcome back to the bass build. Last we left off, we attached the body, we've got our design all set up, and we routed our pockets here for our pickups. Today I want to set this aside for now, and I want to get the fretboard squared away. I'm going to start that by trimming down the excess to about 3 millimeters in from our final dimension because I'm going to put trim around it. Now I'm going to trim this in some of the leftover mahogany from the body build. But before we're going to do that, I'm going to cut those strips out. I'm going to cut this down to its final dimension. We're going to radius it. We're going to slot it and we're going to fret it. And then hopefully we're also going to then attach it to the body. So with that, I'm going to go chop this on the bandsaw and we'll be back once I get it down to shape. Now I've roughly got it cut down to size. But before I combine it, I need to fret it. And before I fret it, I'm going to need to put a radius on it. So I've gone ahead and I've decided I'm going to do a 16-inch radius. So what I'm first going to do is I've got it glued down to this board flat here and strapped down to my bench. I'm going to knock off these corners. And then I'm going to go at it with this 16-inch block until I know that it's flat. Now there are many ways that you can do this. For me, I like to do it with my hand plane. So first I'm going to go a couple passes on this side and a couple passes just to knock down these corners so that I have less material to sand away. Once I've got a subtle radius around there, I'm going to switch over to the sanding block and then I'm going to finish it off from there. Now you could do this all with the hand plane or all with the sanding block. I find it easier to use a compound of both. It makes it go a little faster. But I'm going to keep cracking away at this. We've already got a nice slight 16-inch radius on here. I'm going to keep going until all my pencil marks are gone. Alright, and now that we've gotten this far, I've gone ahead and I've marked out where all my fret positions are, up to the 24th fret. Now just like you saw in my last video, this isn't going to fit in my fretting jig. So I'm actually going to, because this is already mounted down to this board here, I'm going to freehand these. A good trick with your saw is that you can put a piece of tape on there as a stop. Now, as I said before, I like to go a little deeper than what my tang actually is because it gives me room to sand away. So I know once I've gotten to that point, I don't want to go down any further. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and start working my way down. Now if you're going to freehand, it's always good to go through with a good sharp knife and score your lines. It gives your saw something to ride along. As you can see, it looks like I'm rocking the saw. That's because I'm trying to follow the radius of my fretboard. Once I've got that down to a depth, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, 5 slots down, 19 more to go. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to glue this binding on now that I've got it slotted. And I'm going to do that by clamping this flat to my table and then clamping these onto the sides. Alright, we're going to let that dry, and then when we come back we'll be able to trim off the excess and profile down them to size. Alright, now that we got this far, I've got all the binding on here. I'm going to file down this end until it's close to the board, and then I'm going to go in with my hand plane and clean up these edges until it's flat with the board before I clean it up with the radius block. Alright, now that I've got that side as close as I'd like to take it to the board, I'm going to flip it over and do the other one. Alright, fretboard is all set. We've got our holes drilled in it. We've got our center line done. Slap like now if you're really excited for this. I know I am. Alright, it's enough messing around. Let's get this fretboard attached. Now, as I've done before, I've masked off my truss rod. Like I said, I don't like the gunk to get in there. And I've got this hanging precariously off my bench so that I can get all the clamps on there. If you aren't using every clamp that you own, are you really doing it right? We're going to let this dry and we'll come back when it's all set. Alright, so now that the fretboard is attached, I was debating what I wanted to do as far as the fretboard, whether I leave it blank or just do side dots. And I think I've settled on doing that trapezoid pattern right on the edge. Starting off larger and slowly tapering it down. So the fretboard will be mainly blank except for the very edge. Now that I got the inlays all set, I'm going to start shaping the neck. Now, just like in my guitar before, I'm going to take my angle grinder and carefully get it down to close to the thickness, and then I'm going to finish off profiling it by hand with the Shinto rasp. just like that, you can already see the profiles popping out. So I'm going to keep dividing it by fourths from there. And I'm going to keep cracking away at this. And just like that, in about a half hour, you've got a freshly carved and sanded neck. Now, obviously, I didn't sand this down to the final sanding because I want to address this volute and my heel contour. But other than that, it's pretty much set. I cannot express enough that if you are a builder and you don't have one of these yet, or if you're starting out, this is by far one of my favorite tools for working on guitars. This is so useful for everything aside from just doing your neck. This is far better than any other rasp that I have ever used. And even better, it's got 2 different grits. So it's got a heavy grit and a fine grit. I just went through and dremeled out all the bridge pieces here, as you can see. Realized I didn't hit record on my camera. Now simply I just countersunk the holes and then clean it up with my Dremel router. Alright, we've made a lot of headway on this. We've got all of our pockets drilled out on the front. We've got the fretboard on. We've got the neck shaped. I think we're going to call it here on this video for now. In the next video, we're going to drill out the holes for the pots, which the gentleman who wired the electronic kit was nice enough to send me a plate with all of them in it that has it nicely lined up. So I'm going to use that to reference for the body to drill those holes out, and then I'm going to route out the back cavity. So we're going to do that. We're going to do some shaping to get this down to size. And then really it's just fit and finish and sanding. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.